Okay, good evening, everyone. Exciting night. Tonight we are starting the 6th Perek of Masechet Berachot on Daf Lamed Hey Amud Aleph 35A on the top of the page. Exciting night because we are starting the real Masechet Berachot, and I say that because the first 5 chapters is really a Masechet Shema Yisrael and Masechet Tefillah. We didn't learn anything about Berachot. We learned in the first 3 chapters is all about the laws of Shema Yisrael. The chapters 4 and 5 are about the Tefillah and the Amidah. Now we are starting Berachot as you know them. Berachot before food, so it's very exciting. Very apropos that we are starting us off with a siyum. Here we have shakol of you have different types of meats here. You have mizonot, you have hamotzi, you have hagefen, you have all of these different types of foods. The only thing we don't have is ha'etz and adama. If someone can go get me some fruits and vegetables, we'll have like a full Tu B'Shvat spread. Because tonight we're going to be learning Masechet Berachot. The 6th Perek of Masechet Berachot is about Berachot on food. I would like to get started. Be'ezrat Hashem, B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach. Let me share my screen. Let's go. Share, advanced. Here. Let's go. And there we go. Okay. So everyone with me? It's in Berachot, Lamed Hey Amud Aleph 35A. We're starting at the top of the page. Tonight's, you know what? Let's do the Mishnah, and then afterwards I'll give an intro on the Gemara. Tonight's Gemara is going to start with things that anyone that says Berachot before food are familiar with, and we are going to be learning the source. Ketzad mevarechin ala perot. How do we make Berachot on fruits? I know you said you're not having dinner, but you're allowed to have dinner, okay? It's there for you as well. Baruch Hashem. How do we make blessings on fruits? So we're assuming here that you're making blessings on fruits, and we're going to learn in the Gemara what the source is. But now that we're making blessings, we want to know, what's the blessing? Amazing. We're going to learn a Mishnah of how to say a berachah on a food. And right now, specifically, it's asking about fruits. Al perot ha'ilan hu omer. So here's what the Mishnah says: on the fruits of the tree, one would say bore peri ha'etz, which the bracha is Baruch Ata Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, Elokeinu, our God, Melech haolam, the King of the universe, bore, he who creates, the one who creates, peri, which means the fruits, ha'etz, of the tree. Bore peri ha'etz means he creates the fruits of the tree. That's the bracha that one says before they eat fruits of the tree. Chutz min hayayin. The only exception of a fruit item that gets its own unique blessing on fruits is not really a fruit, but it's a derivative of a fruit, and that is wine. Right here, I'm holding a thing of wine in honor of the class. Chutz min hayayin, she'al hayayin omer, that on wine, which really is coming from a fruit of a tree or of a vine. On this one, he says, Bore peri hagefen, the one who creates the fruits of a vine. Now, the art scroll here writes hagafen. It's a machloket between Sfaradim and Ashkenazim, whether we say Bore peri hagefen or Bore peri hagafen. Probably the more accurate one from the sentence structure is hagafen. The way the Ashkenazim say it, they got a piece of a popper, sorry. Like the same way I would say hamotzi lechem min haaretz. I'll just give you a little bit of grammar, although I don't really want to get into this. Whenever you have a word that is segol, eretz, gefen, whenever you have a word that's segol, at the end of a pasuk, it becomes kamat segol. Like it becomes aretz, gafen. And there's many examples. Or the word erev, at the end of the pasuk, if it's at the end of a pasuk, it'll become arev. It's a grammatical thing. Okay, it does not change the meaning at all. The word gefen and gafen means the same thing. But the question is, when you say bore priya gefen, is it the end of a sentence or not? So it is the end of a sentence. So the way that Ashkenazim say bore priya gafen is probably more grammatically correct. But there's a reason why we say gefen, and that is you have the pasuk in the Torah that says eretz chita usora the gefen utena verimon. You're copying the you're like copying verbatim for the word that's in the Torah. And the word in the Torah that has to do with berachot, including that has to do with wine, it uses the word gefen, so we copy that. If someone says gafen, it's not wrong. Someone says gefen, it's not wrong. Both are correct. They mean the same thing. The way the minhag of Sfaradim is to say borei priya gefen. So that's what we do because we're Sfaradi and we follow. Unless you're Ashkenazi, if you're Ashkenazi, say borei priya gefen. The best is when you get at a chuppah and it's a Sephardi wedding. There isn't an Ashkenazi person there except for maybe the manager of the hall. Everyone there is Sephardi, and then the first person comes up, sorry, borei priya gefen for the first of the 6th Berachot. And then it's like, well, I imagine this is what you've been saying in your Friday night table, or every time you drink wine, you say borei priya gefen. But I mean, it's not wrong. This is not something a bone to pick with anyone. If someone says gefen is the same thing, but we say borei priya, or Sfaradim say borei priya gefen, Ashkenazim say borei priya gefen. Okay, questions? Are the bracha rishona deoraita? Wow, Ilan's asking an excellent question. We are going to learn about this. Very good. By the way, if you want to learn about whether the berachot, the status of Rabbanan or deoraita, which means whether it's a Torah requirement or a rabbinic requirement, the page that you're going to find that on is Daf Lamed He Amud Aleph. This is the page the discussion comes up. The Gemara itself is not going to address it, but we're going to get into it. And I'll share the different opinions. So stay tuned. I don't know if we'll get to it tonight or maybe next week or next time we have Shiur. Okay? So, yes.
So I hear mainly like instead of the word peri, say ferry.
Oh.
Probably told very big.
Yeah. That I don't have no comment. I don't know. I don't know. Borei feri agefen, borei pri agefen has to do with beged kefet after. Yeah, okay. You want to say feri? It's again, it doesn't. It's grammatical. It doesn't change the meaning. Maybe one is more appropriate than the other. Okay. Chutz min hayayin shel hayayin hu omer borei peri hagefen. So there we go. What bracha do we say on fruits of the tree? Borei peri ha'etz. Except the only exception within that is wine, in which we say borei peri hagefen. Ve'al perot ha'aretz hu omer. And what does one bless on the fruits or the outgrowths of the ground? Like the fruits of the ground, let's say for example melons, you have a nice fruit, it's a melon, and it comes from the ground. What bracha do you say? Borei peri ha'adama. Again, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, blessed are you Hashem, our God, the master of the universe, the king of the universe, the one who creates the fruits of the ground. Peri ha'adama. Chutz min hapat, the only exception of something that's coming out of the ground, that we're not saying ha'adama, is bread. Shal apatu omer, because on bread one says hamotzi lechem min haaretz, the one who brings bread out of the ground. Now, what's fascinating is that there is never any bread that comes out of the ground. There's also no wine that comes out of the ground. There are things that we humans have to process. We have to process and create the bread. But even with human intervention, we're blessing that the source is coming from Hashem. So we're saying that Hashem, you created hamotzi lechem min haaretz. You brought the bread out of the ground, even though you didn't bring the bread as it is, but we're acknowledging that this bread, which is a staple. So now, just to draw yourselves some parallels, we have fruits of the tree, fruits of the ground. Fruits of the tree, borei pri ha'etz. Fruits of the ground, borei pri ha'adama. Fruits of the tree, there is an exception of an elevated item. The greatest, the highest level of something that comes out of the ground is wine. It's like a sanctified level. All divarim shebekdusha. When someone is getting married at a chuppah, we use wine. So when there's a brit milah, we use wine. When you're doing Shiur Berachot, you use wine. Birkat Hamazon, you use wine. Kiddush, we use wine. It's something that shows significance. So because it's on an elevated level, wine as this beverage is a higher level, it gets its own bracha. So too, bread is a staple. You want to have a meal, you say hamotzi. Friday night, you say hamotzi. Shabbat, you say hamotzi. We have on Pesach, we say hamotzi, or on matzah, but we say it on hamotzi. On night of Sukkot, in the Sukkot, you have to say hamotzi. It's the highest food item, most significant food staple. So we say hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Now, look at this. Ve'ala yirakot omer. This is going to be something that might be a little bit trippy, because the halacha is not like this. You're going to get confused. What bracha does someone say on vegetables? So what do you say? Borei pri adama is what our Mishnah says. But Rabbi Yehudah disagrees. Rabbi Yehudah says, Borei mine dishaim. A new bracha. Imagine that. What are you talking about? The one who creates species of herbage. So this is what Rabbi Yehudah argues. Rabbi Yehudah says, Periha Adama means fruits of the ground. But if you're not eating a fruit, but you're eating a grass, you don't say fruits of the ground. This isn't a fruit of the ground. Cabbage. Cabbage is not a fruit of the ground. Watermelon is a fruit of the ground. Cabbage is not a fruit of the ground. All the herbs, parsley. You could even argue carrots or radish, things that have bulbs, is that, okay, look, there's grass on top. The bottom is the fruit. There's like a fruit. And anyone ever go carrot picking? I've done it. You stick your hand straight into the manure and you pull out carrots. You just see like a bunch of green things on a farm, just a little bunch of green heads. You pull it out, a carrot comes out of the ground. And that is like the fruit. Fine. But the herbs, someone wants to eat like seaweed. I don't know what seaweed is. It's not a fruit. Someone wants to eat, like I said, cabbage, lettuce. It's not a fruit. Romaine lettuce is not a fruit. It's just greens. So Rabbi Yehudah says you have to become a little bit more specific, and we're going to see elsewhere that Rabbi Yehudah also says this with seeds. You want to eat pumpkin seeds. It's not a peri. You crack open a pumpkin, you take out its seed, and then you roast it, and you want to eat what's inside of that seed, and you say, Borei pri adama. There's not a pri adama, it's a seed. So Rabbi Yehudah is going to disagree, and he's going to say, Borei mineh zira'im. You created seeds. Yeah? Logic makes sense. Sorry? Wine isn't a fruit, correct. But it's, correct. Wine isn't a fruit, but it's coming from a fruit, and it's an elevated status. Peri hagefen, the Gemara is going to translate for us. You're absolutely correct. We don't say bore peri hayayin. We say bore peri hagefen. The gefen is in reference to the vine. And it's the fruits that come out of the vine, which is really the grapes. So God created the grapes from which wine comes. It's interesting, the berachah on wine is not actually mentioning wine. It's mentioning the source of wine, but in a more specific way. Whereas you say, Borei peri ha'etz, the fruits of a tree, Borei peri ha'gefen, the fruit of a vine. But it's both a fruit. You're correct. Both the berachot are referring to the fruit, and you're getting the liquid out of the fruit. Very good. Yeah. The grapevine. Yeah. Correct. Sorry. Grapevine. Gefen is referring specifically to a grapevine. Okay? All right. Very good. By the way, you know how they call a field of grapevines, like a vineyard in Hebrew? It's called a kerem. John, this is for you, laShem. If you want for your honeymoon, we went to a hotel once in Israel, and it was called Kramim, and the hotel was like on a vineyard, and it's just like a beautiful thing. It's like, and actually, you look outside, it's like a vineyard, and everywhere you go, they have like wine. You come in, you're like, boy, it's terrible, okay? Because it's like straight out of the ground, and it's like this cheap wine. But they had like a nice wine tasting thing in the lobby. A hilarious story. I don't know why I'm saying this, but in the lobby of the hotel, because it's on a vineyard, they had like a wine tasting. And there was one day, whatever, it was a very relaxing place. It's a spa. It's a nice place. And there was like a 2:00 wine tasting in Hebrew, and then like a 3:00 in English. So we wanted to go out to dinner. We're like, you know what? Let's go to the first one. We went to the first one, and we're like, yeah, let's go to the second one. Why not? This one is in Hebrew. This is in English. And so we did the first one. We had the wine, whatever, and then we go to the second one. It's the same guy. He speaks both languages. He's like, you guys here again? We're like, I don't know, you know English. But yeah, so it was pretty funny. It was the same guy. It's a nice place. It's called Kramim. Kerem. It's going to be important because we're going to be introduced to the word kerem very shortly. Mazal tov, we finished the 5th Perek. We started the 6th Perek. Baruch Hashem. In your zechut, we'll just do a quick recap of our Mishnah. The Mishnah starts by telling us what are the berachot we say on food items. Fruits of the tree, borei peri ha'etz. The only exception is there's a specific tree that we call out by name for wine, borei peri hagefen, which means the fruits of the vine, the grapevine, and that's specifically for wine. And then for the fruits of the ground, borei peri adama, the only exception being once you have processed bread, it gets elevated to hamotzi lechem min haaretz. These are two elevated statuses, And then there's a third one about what if you're actually eating like grass or herbs or cabbage. Borei Pri Adama, according to our Tanna Kama, we say Borei Pri Adama, but there's an opinion of Rabbi Yehudah that says, I want you to get more specific. And Rabbi Yehudah likes specificity to the extent that he says you have to say Borei Minei D'Shaim, God creates different types of herbage. Okay, I see two questions, then we'll move on. Okay, Moshe?
Sure. Make like a juice out of it. Says that. Oh, so is that
Very good. Okay. When I first looked at this Mishnah, right away I made an inference just like Moshe made an inference. It says, hold on. Okay, so it says on all the fruits you say Borei Piraetz. The only exception is wine. When then I said, well, hold on a second. If you're going to mention wine, that means juices are fair game because you're including a liquid, which the implication of that line is that orange juice is ha'etz. Because you're saying all fruits. The only fruit that's not ha'etz is wine. So then, you're including the liquid, so apple juice, ha'etz. And so is that the implication? That. It seems like that's the implication. That's not the halacha. Stay tuned. We're going to get into juices. Okay, all juices are shackle except for wine. All juices are shackle. Sometimes if something is very thick, we could talk about it. But for now, guys, I just want you to know, Masechet Berachot. Ketzad Mevarachim, the 6th Perek of Berachot, is very challenging because there are a lot of halachot. And almost every halacha, there's going to be different opinions, and it gets complicated. So we're going to do our best to not only learn the Gemara, but also try to cover the halachot. It's going to be tough. We're going to do this as a group. We're going to do this as a mission together. But we're going to get into juices, Be'ezrat Hashem. Yes?
same topic. Then could you say that having plain grapes would also not happen? Why is it straight liquid?
Right. So so now you're going to take a reverse. You're going to say, if my implication is that the fruits and the juice of the fruits is the same bracha, so then the elevated status of wine, does the elevated status of wine actually go on the grape itself? Okay, good question. We're going to see that that's not the case because the wine status is elevated. The status of wine, because wine, and we're going to see in the Gemara why wine is unique, because it has certain properties of making you happy, and that grapes don't have. No matter how many grapes you eat, you're not going to feel the same way as if you have one of these bottles. It's a different experience. We're going to see the fact that it has this effect on you and that people want it and people drink it is an elevated status. Okay, I'm not promoting drinking here. Yeah.
Going back to the question, right? Is it like, because I think being arbitrary, just saying these are berachos, like you can make his own bracha for what he thinks should be the bracha.
Okay, good question. It's a good question of like how we come up with these. Okay, let's come back to that question. That's like more of a broad question of like where these came from. We'll try to. I think they put a garbage in that corner. Sorry, but you could just leave it there. It's fine. Any other questions? We gotta move. Yeah.
I was gonna say it kind of depends on how you define the word fruit. Whereas it's like a metaphor all around Torah. Like
Very good. Fruit can be defined as the derivative of, right? How it's that which comes out of. You could explain it like fruit of the womb is child. Very good. Be fruitful and multiply. I remember, I forgot what grade I was. Maybe it was in first grade. The rabbi said, we have a mitzvah to be fruitful and multiply. And he said, what does it mean to be fruitful? And I said, to have a lot of fruits. Because that's literally what fruitful means. But no, it means to have kids. Yeah, so there you go.
Going back to the talk about for vegetables.
Say it again. Oh, yeah. So exactly. That's why Rabbi Yehudah says you can't call the vegetable the fruit of, well, you could call it the fruit of the ground. Okay, very good. So now you're explaining the opinion of the Chachamim of why they call it the fruit of the ground, not because they define it as a fruit, but because it's something that comes out of the ground. You're not eating the ground. You're eating something that comes out of the ground. Very good, Richard. Very good. Very good. Okay, good. Let's go. I'm going to share screen again. Share screen. Yeah, I think by the end of this, you're gonna come up with some new berachot. But we're gonna talk about how Chachamim have a balance here of they want specificity, but they don't want us to go out of hand. So they're coming up with some broad categories, and we're going to learn that there are 6 berachot. There's hamotzi, there is hagefen, haetz, haadama, mizonot, she'akol. And these 6 berachot are broad enough and specific enough to cover everything. Rabbi Yehudah says, I want even more specific, but even Rabbi Yehudah, like, you don't say borei peri apples, borei peri oranges, borei peri Granny Smith apples, borei peri green sour apple. Like, in terms of specificity, you can go crazy. Like a 1-year-old hen and a 2-year-old hen and a quail, it could go forever. So it's a balancing act. Why not just simply say everything has one bracha? Hashem, you created ochel, she'akol niyah midvaro, because there is greater acknowledgement of God the more specific you get. Whenever someone hosts you for Shabbat, and you spend there and they do a lot of things for you. They give you food, they give you a place to sleep, they give you, I don't know. They provide you bedding, they provide you this, they give you pajamas, whatever it is that you could imagine, that they give you a bunch of stuff. They let you borrow their car to drive somewhere on Saturday night. They give you breakfast Sunday morning. They give you this, they give you that, they give you this. And then at the end of it, you say, thank you so much. And you leave. What would you say? I said, thank you. But it's like, hold on. Like, you can be a little bit more specific. Like, thank you so much for giving me your home, for letting me a place to sleep, for giving me an entire wing of your house, for cooking for me, for then giving this, and then let me rent this, and you're doing this, and if done like this. The more specific, the better. So when we want to say berachot, we want to say, look, Hashem, Ribono Shel Olam, you created things that come out of that, and you created things that come out of that, and you have created things that come out of that. But you also can't go crazy. So this is what the balance of specific, but not overly, I don't know what the word is, not overly specific. As simple as you have to be. They say that this is what, not too vague, right? You don't want to be too vague. They say something about like Einstein. And I think the quote is not a real quote, but there's a quote by Einstein that things should be as complicated as they need to be, but not more. Or, something like as complicated as it has to be, that's it. Not more than that. You know what? Let's just look up the fake quote. Okay. Einstein, E-Trade, no. Einstein, complicated as it needs to be, quote. All right. I'm pretty sure there's no way Einstein said this. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. Opposite of what I said. It's the same concept though. It should be as simple as possible, but not simpler, right? It shouldn't be simpler than you can go. So we want to keep it simple, but if you're losing things by saying shakol yabit, that's too simple. So not simpler. Okay, so there we go. We're going to call that the Masechet Berachot Daf Lamed Hey Amud Aleph Mishnah quote, not the Einstein quote. There's no way did Einstein really say this? Hold on. Did Einstein really say this? Oh, I'm not sharing screen. Sorry. Einstein likely did not say that exact phrase. Yeah, okay. I don't need to be a genius to know that Einstein didn't say this exact phrase. Okay, let's go. Share screen. People like saying their line that Einstein said it. Yeah, okay. Einstein said what I'm saying to you right now. Einstein said, let's learn. Okay, hold on. There we go. All right, let's continue with the Gemara. Now the Gemara wants to know what is the source of teaching these berachot. Before we start with the Gemara, let's give a round of applause for Mr. Andrew Akimian. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew, not only did he order the food, he went and he picked it up himself and he brought it here himself. I think some of the bread he actually baked himself. Then he had to run somewhere else. He came, he put the Gemaras here for us. He took care of the setup. Really, I don't know what we would do without you, Andrew. Thank you very much. You keep the shiur going. Thank you very much. Yeah, you see? I could have just said thank you. But, the more details shows, the more you appreciate. Yeah, Andrew, you segued very nicely with our Gemara. Okay, here we go. Now the Gemara wants to know, what is the source? And ladies and gentlemen, the Gemara we're about to learn is a bit complicated. I want to try to get through it. So I'm going to ask you to bear with me. Don't ask too many questions, but you could ask questions just simple enough, but not simpler than that. Okay? Here we go. Minani mili. We learned from where are these things known, which means The phrase mina hani mili, or mina hani mileh, this means give me a biblical source for this law that you taught. If you ever see the words mina hani mili or minala, also, it's saying, I want a biblical source for this law that you just taught. So, what you should expect to see immediately after the question mina hani mili is a biblical source, a Braita or a Mishnah or something, but it's going to quote something from the Tanakh. Okay? And that's how this Gemara is going to start. The Tanur Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita, kodesh hilulim ladonai. Okay, this is actually from Parashat Kedoshim. So it's from this week's Parashat. So now we're going to learn about Parashat also. What does the Torah say? It's in Leviticus 19:24. And I am going to see if I could... I was going to see if I could jump to it quickly. Let's go to this quickly. Okay, so this week's parasha, Acharei Mot Kedoshim, it is in Aliyat Revai, right here. Here it is. Oh, I can't make this bigger. All right, sorry. You gotta. This is the. I don't know why I can't make it bigger. Oh, this is. How do I make it bigger? That's how. Okay. By the Berachot Moshe. It's on auto drive. It's trying to take me back to where I was, where it lost because I made the size bigger. Oh my gosh. Should have just kept the smaller font. Sorry guys. These things happen. Okay. Here we go. I'm not making it bigger. This you get what you get. It says as following: Hashem tells Moshe, when you enter the land of Israel. Kedoshim, here it is. When you enter the land of Israel and you plant any tree for food, untatem kol etz ma'achal va'araltem orlato et piryo. For 3 years, its fruit is forbidden. This is this week's parasha. You go into the land of Israel. You plant your favorite fig tree, your favorite date tree. For 3 years, Orlah, you're not allowed to eat any of its fruits. Shalosh shanim yelachem arilim lo yachel. For 3 years, it's forbidden for you. You cannot eat it. Uvashana revi'it, and in the 4th year, this line is critical for us. Yeh kol piryo, all of its fruit shall be kodesh hilulim ladonai, holy for praising to God. The 4th year fruits is called neta Revai, is meant holy for praising God. What on earth does that mean? Well, what it means is that you have to take those fruits and eat them in Jerusalem. Which means, let's say you live in, wherever you live in Tel Aviv, and in Tel Aviv you go and you plant your fig tree. The first 3 years you can't eat it. The 4th year, these fruits have to be holy for God, for celebration, for Hallel. Hilulim means Hallel, praising God. How? Because you take it to the Beit HaMikdash, you take it to Yerushalayim. Uvashana chamishit, and in the 5th year, tochlu et piryo lo osiv lachem tivuato. You eat whatever you want. It's yours. It's what we call in Farsi azad. You can do whatever you want with it. First 3 years, nada. Year 4, Jerusalem. Year 5, whatever you want.
You eat it in Jerusalem?
You have to eat it in Jerusalem. You take it there and you eat it, or give it to someone else to eat.
Oh, I eat it or I do?
Anyone. It's yours to eat, but in Yerushalayim. You do like a Orlah regel. You could go and take it up for Pesach, and you make like a lot of fig. Everything is like a fig. For this Sukkot, everyone's eating fig noodles because you have a bunch of figs. Now you are allowed to. Let's say you have so much. Baruch Hashem. Some people have this problem. You have so much you can't carry it to Jerusalem. So what are you allowed to do? You're allowed to redeem it, which means this amount of figs costs $1,000 from the 4th year. I take that $1,000 worth. I go to Jerusalem, and over there I'll buy food. I'll go to some restaurant and I'll eat shawarma. You're allowed to eat something else with the value of the fruits. Now, here's what's important. In the 4th year is the first time that we talk about eating fruits. You get it? First 3 years you're not allowed to eat, but in the 4th year you are allowed to eat it. Now you start seeing the connection to our Gemara. And when you eat it, it says it should be set aside as hilulim. What is hilulim? Praises. One would be Hallel. Hilulim means double praises. When you're eating this food in your 4th year, you got to have double praise. What is your double praise? Before you eat it and after you eat it. This is going to be the source that the Gemara is going to start us off with. And I will tell you, the Gemara is going to reject this for many reasons. But this is where we start off with. We want to find a source in the Torah for saying berachah before eating fruits. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you where, because it says when you have a tree in the 4th year, you got to have praises over it. Praises, what does that mean? I do one before, I do one after. Those are the praises around it. That's called a berachah. That's the Gemara. It's not that far-fetched. Kodesh, hilulim Adonai, and in the 4th year, its fruit shall be holy for praises to God. Melamed, this teaches us, sheteonim berachah, lifnehem ul-acharehem. This teaches us that they require reciting a blessing before them, before eating them, and after eating them. Mikan amar Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva, he came and he said, from this teaching, he said, Asur le'adam she'it'om kelum kodem she'ivarech. It is forbidden for a person to taste anything without saying a berachah beforehand. Okay? So here we have the Braita. The Braita is in the context of what's called neta Revai. Neta Revai is the 4th year fruits. You guys could, with this week's parasha, you could impress people left and right because you're learning the Gemara on the concept. The first 3 years is called Orlah. You're not allowed to eat it. The 4th year is called neta Revai. It's a planting. Neta is a planting. Revai is of the 4th year. And that, what are you supposed to do with neta Revai? Eat it in Yerushalayim. Or exchange it and take the money to Yerushalayim, and then you could buy shawarma in Yerushalayim. You're allowed to do that. And then the 5th year, you're allowed to eat it from wherever you want. But when the Gemara says your neta Revai, your 4th year fruits, it says it's holy for praises. Praises. Why? Because now's the first time you're allowed to eat it. You're going to make praises on it. One before you eat it, one after you eat it. That's your source of bracha from the Torah. Okay? Questions? Yes.
So it's forbidden for a person to taste anything, but then you learned earlier that actually you don't need this, like circumstances, depending how much you have, you don't need to say.
Very good. Very good. Okay, Cody, excellent. Cody's bringing up a Gemara. I don't know what page it was on. In the Yuds. Maybe Daf Yud Aleph. No. I don't know. It talks about on if someone tastes a food item, if they're allowed to taste on a fast day. We learned this together, no? You're allowed to taste on a fast day, but you spit it out. Are you allowed to do that? If you're going to taste a food item, but you're not going to swallow it, do you have to make a berachah? The answer is no. So if you're cooking something, and as you're cooking, you're just going to, as long as you spit it out and you're not swallowing it, you don't make a berachah on it. So now Cody's saying, but over here, Rabbi Akiva says you're not allowed to taste it. It's a good question. I don't think they're going to comment on it. I think you take what he's saying not literally here. Is meaning that even the smallest benefit, just even if you're not getting satiated from it, when you're just tasting it, just like for a taste, you still have to make a bracha. But literally, if you're just tasting and not swallowing, you're right. Very good pick up on the Gemara. Beautiful. Yes. They're kosher? If they're kosher, someone, yeah, okay, kosher samples. You should say a bracha on a sample. Well, okay, I guess it's like this. If you're sampling it to see if you want to buy, but you're going to spit it out, no. But yeah. If you're having your lunch there, basically.
Actually, see something that's new and like you just want to taste it. Like,
Yeah, or like more simply, if you're like at a ice cream place and you want to taste it. Look, if there really is no intention of eating, but it's just for taste, and there might be a case you make of not making a bracha on it. There might be a case that you make on it. So it's complicated. What I would say is you should have in mind that you want to eat it. Then you say the bracha. But if you have no intention, we're going to learn this. We're going to learn. Again, we're jumping the gun of like at what point, even though Rabbi Akiva says it here, we're going to learn there's a Mishnah that says you're drinking water to quench your thirst. Where the exclusion would be if I'm drinking water for some other reason, if I'm choking, or not choking, but if I'm trying to I'm giving a speech and right now I'm taking something not to quench my thirst, but to clear my throat, or some other reason, there might be exceptions. So it's an excellent question. You know what? Let's put that on the list. Somebody's got to keep me a list. You can put it in the chat of questions that we need to address. We have to address the question of juice. We have to address the question of ice cream samples, okay, or Costco samples. Okay, we'll hopefully get into that. Yeah. Very good, John. Your question is: does the laws of Orlah apply today? The answer is yes. Does it apply in Israel and outside of Israel? Most likely it applies rabbinically outside of Israel, but it applies outside of Israel. Which means if you go to Home Depot and you buy yourself some sort of a fruit tree, you should follow the laws of Orlah. But but it goes from based on when it was planted. So if you keep it in the plot and it was there for over 3 years, if you buy a 4-year-old tree from Home Depot, then I don't think we don't keep the 4th year. You don't have to take it to Yerushalayim. But the first 3 years laws of Orlah still apply. If someone wants to do this, yeah, are tomatoes fruit or not? Guys, you have to be careful because I'm not ready to give you halachic lessons on this stuff. It's like I'm very focused on this page right now. But it is a good question. It is a good question about you should be aware that if you are going to plant something in your backyard and it's going to be something new, you should make sure that you're allowed to eat from it for the first couple of years. Very good. It does apply. The laws apply outside of Israel nowadays as well. Okay, let's go. Continuing. We're not going to get through this daf today. This is a very long, complicated daf. We'll do our best. Okay, so now, here's what happened. What's my source? The answer is hilulim, right? By neta Revai, it says hilulim. The Gemara says, V'ha hilulim, v'ha chiyudata. Are you going to use this hilulim, which means 2 halels, 2 praises, one for berachah before, one berachah for after? Is that how you're going to learn this out? You can't. Ha mi baile, I need it for other drashot that I'm making. I am going to learn 2 different rules from hilulim. And there's 2 halels. I'm going to learn rule 1 and rule 2, and neither of them have to do with berachot. And you can't double dip because you're not allowed to. This is the words of drashot. Look, the word hilulim is extra because you could have just said Bashana Revi'it kodesh laShem. It's holy for God, and that would mean it's holy for God. You have to take it up to Yerushalayim. We would understand, but it's holy for praising God, praises of God. Oh, that's an extra word. Okay, plural, 2 things. We're going to learn 2 things from here. So, no, you can't unless it's the pshat. But to make a drasha, look, it doesn't say berachot, so you're making a drasha. You can't double dip your drashot. If your drasha is berachah before, berachah after, fine. But then you can't learn other things. Now I'm going to show another braita that says I'm learning 2 other things from it. Let's see it. Hai mi baile. I need these 2 expressions for something else. Chad amar rachmana. One, the Torah is telling us achle v'hadar achle. Amazing. The word halel with a he can be interchanged with chalel with a chet. Halel halel. And we're going to make a drasha of using the word chalel or hilul twice. So it's like a drasha, not from the word itself, but from a asterisk of the word. It says hilulim. Let's change it to hilulim. One chalel means to desecrate, or not to desecrate, to deconsecrate. So what should you do? Deconsecrate it and then eat it. Remember what I said about what happens if I can't take these fruits to Jerusalem? What should I do? You have to redeem it. And then once I redeem it, I'm going to take the money, go buy shawarma. Am I allowed to eat those figs outside of Yerushalayim? Yeah, that's the whole point. So this is what the Gemara is saying. Halel means do a chalel, make a chilul, deconsecrate it first, because it's kodesh, but you have to be mechalel it before you eat it. So that's the way you're going to learn it is, and their 4th year fruits, it's kodesh, unless chilul. Hilulim, you could do a hilul, then you are allowed to eat it without going to Yerushalayim. That's the first line. Achle ve'adar achle. Deconsecrate it, and then eat it. Ve'idach, and I know. Eli, sometimes when I'm in Claude, it tells me I've been maxed out of my questions. You're maxed out of your questions, okay? No more questions for you. You reached your token limits. You could it resets at 11 p.m.
Yes, upgrade.
No, you're right. He's asking a very good point. The Torah says the word halel, and you're saying, oh, let's make a drasha on the word halel. So we're entering the world of drashot, okay? The word halel, hilulim, means praises. We're trying to understand what that means because it's an extra word. It's available for drashot. So first we're going to say berachah before and after. We have another braita that says, no, I have another one. Granted, it's a different drasha, but it's a drasha nonetheless. The first one is that you have to deconsecrate it and then you're allowed to eat it. Ve'idach, The second halal is really hilul. Davara ta'un shira ta'un hilul. This one is beautiful. It says, the food item on which there is halal is the food item that needs a hilul. What does that mean? That means in the Beit HaMikdash, we have a Levi here. No Leviim? Impossible. Wow. Okay, so we don't have any Leviim here. In the Beit HaMikdash, the Leviim would sing, and they would sing during a certain service. That service they would sing during is called the Nisuch HaYayin, the wine libation. It's not when they were slaughtering the animals or burning the flour or burning the meat. It's during the wine libation. So look at this. It says, you know when I'm telling you kodesh hilulim, the only thing that's kodesh is that which you do a halal on, which means wine only. Which means this drasha is going to be limiting the entire neta Revai concept to really a kerem Revai. The first 3 years, you're not allowed to eat grapes. The 4th year, you have to take your grapes to Jerusalem and eat it. And in your 5th year, you're allowed to eat your grapes wherever you want. But it doesn't apply to figs, doesn't apply to mangoes, doesn't apply to anything else. This opinion is saying the concept of Revai, of Orlah, only applies to that which has halal on it. Because it says, kodesh hilulim. Davar ta'un shira, ta'un chilul. Something that requires song requires deconsecration. V'she'enot ta'un shira, ein ta'un chilul. But something that does not require song does not require deconsecration. That is, the sanctity of the 4th year fruits applies only to grapes, which are the only fruits over which the Leviim in the temple sing the songs of praise to God. Okay? So, 2 drashot that we make from the word hilulim. Drasha number 1 is achle v'hadar achle, which means if you want to eat it, deconsecrate it first by redeeming it, and then you're allowed to eat it. And second one, davar ta'un shira ta'un chilul, that this law only applies to grapes. You can't double dip. Now the reason you could do these 2 is because you have hilulim twice. Halal 1, halal 2. So halal 1 says, if you deconsecrate it, you're allowed to eat it. And halal 2 is teaching you grapes only, wine only, because that's the only time you ever have halal over a fruit. The whole law of Orlah applies only to grapes. So now we're going to say, if these are 2 things that you learn from here, how can you learn from here berachah before and berachah from after? They're not available for drasha. Okay, now, where do we see this connection that wine is the only food item on which there's praising to God, which in practice in the Beit HaMikdash, the halal during the korbanot would happen during the yain, nisuch hayayin. But let's find the source for it. Could the Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani amar Rabbi Yonatan, as Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani taught us in the name of Rabbi Yonatan, Damar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani amar Rabbi Yonatan, minayin she'en omrim shira ela el yain. What's the source? By the way, if you see the word minayin, it's also same idea. Mina hanimili minala minayin. Give me a biblical source of why we only are singing in the Beit HaMikdash over wine. Shneimar, as the pasuk says in Shofetim, Vatomer lahem hagefen, the vine says to the rest of the forest, Hechodalti et tiroshi hamsamech Elohim va'anashim. This is in Shoftim. It's a whole long story there. Maybe if there's time, I'll explain what the story is. You know what, I'll just say it. Saying these things are going to slow us down, but it's okay. I'll explain what the story is. In the book of Judges, there was one shofet, Gidon, who was a great leader of the Jewish people. Anyone know about Gidon? Okay, he was a great leader of the Jewish people. You know this story, Adam? Or okay, so he was a great leader, and he had many children. And when he passed away, he had opportunities to become the king. This is before we had a king of Israel. He didn't become the king of Israel. He chose not to be the king of Israel. And there were other great judges before him that chose not to become kings, the official melech. Then what happened was, when Gidon passed away, he had a lot of kids, and his kids were the rulers. He had like over 70 kids, 70 children, and they became the rulers. Gidon's, I don't know how he had so many children, but he had like 70 children. And what happened was that they were the leaders. Now there was one of his children, of Gidon's children, that was from a concubine. So the mom had friends that weren't Jewish, essentially. And he went to them and he said, guys, who do you want to be your leader? Do you want it to be all 70 of us? Like all of us, Gidon's kids? Or do you want it to be me, your brother? I'm your brother from your mother. Let it be me. And they say, okay, fine. He signs a pact and an alliance with them, and then he goes and he murders his 70 brothers. Because he understood that Gidon's kids were the leaders. He was a terrible person. And he went and he got himself some sort of an alliance, and he killed his own brothers. So that this way he could become the leader. There was one brother that escaped. There was only one that ran away. Adam, you know this story. Okay, there was one brother that ran away. And when this brother ran away, he went and he essentially came up with a poem, a mashal, to basically say how what my brother did by murdering everyone was wrong, because he took the kingship for his own. It was the pride and the leadership that went to his head. And the way that he made the mashal was that the forest wanted to establish a king over itself. So it would go to different types of fruit items and say, I want you to be my king. I want you to be my king. And each one said, no, like, I don't want to be your king. I don't think it's correct for me to be your king. And one of the trees that it goes to is the vine, is the vineyard. You know what? Let me see if I could open it up. No, how do I jump to it? Oh, I don't even know what happened. Okay, so now this is what it says. Give me some English here. Did that work? Okay. Avimelech, the son of Yerubal. Oh, I said Gidon. Avimelech is the son. Okay, so Gidon's final years. Gidon passes away. Now Avimelech is the son that murders everyone. So Avimelech, son of Yerubal, went to Shechem, to his mother's brothers. This is what I was saying. And spoke to them and to the entire family of his mother's household, saying, speak now in the ears of all the inhabitants of Shechem. Let's speak in front of everyone. What is better for you? That 70 men rule over you, all the sons of Yerubal? Or that only one man rule over you? If you guys sign an alliance with me, make me your king, we'll get rid of everyone else. And remember, I'm your bone and flesh. I'm your mother. I'm your brother. So his mother's brothers spoke all these words about him in the ears of the inhabitants of Shechem. They spoke it through. Their hearts inclined after Avimelech, for they said, he's our kinsman. Yeah, he's one of us. They gave him 70 pieces of silver. They made a deal with him. Fine. You have our support. So then he came to his father's house and he murdered his brothers. 70 men at one rock. But Yotam, Yerubal's youngest son, was left, for he had hidden. So he murdered his brothers, except for one, Yotam. Then Yotam essentially runs away. So he goes up to Mount Har Gerizim. It's a very beautiful story. And he starts speaking to the people of Shechem. He's saying, look what you guys did. You guys started something and you went and it was done through murder. So he's screaming out to them. He cried out. He said to them, listen to me, O inhabitants of Shechem, so God may listen to you. The trees went to anoint a king over themselves. They went to the olive tree and they said, reign over us. We want you to be the king. But the olive tree said to them, shall I cause my richness to cease, whereby God and men honor themselves through me and go wave over the trees? He's saying, to become the ruler of the forest, I'm going to have to give up everything that I do from the olive. I give oil. There's luxury in what I produce. I could go wave over everyone, but I'm going to be losing out on my mission. And I won't be producing oil anymore. And go wave over the trees. Then the trees went to the fig tree and they said, hey, you reign over us. But the fig tree said to them, shall I cause my sweetness and my goodly produce to cease and go wave over the trees? I should give up my fruits and everything sweet that I'm producing and everything good that I'm doing to go mess it up and go wave over the trees. Almost like saying, like, what do you need to be the king for? Why do you want to be the king? Then the tree went to the grapevine and says, you go and reign over us. And this is, by the way, why we're quoting it. Because the grapevine responded to them, shall I give up my vintage that gladdens God and men? My fruits, my wine, gladdens the hearts of men and gladdens God, and go wave over the trees? Then all the trees went down to the thorn and said, hey, you thorn, that you have nothing to produce. You're not good for anything. You're just terrible. You go reign over us. And he says, okay, fine, make me the king. Almost to say how this is exactly what happened, where there were much greater people than Avimelech in the previous generations, like Gidon, like Devorah, like many people of the judges. None of them became the king, and all of a sudden this kid from a concubine You might say bastard child almost. I don't know if that's really the right translation. Maybe it's like a mistranslation, but you're going to go on, you're going to go murder everyone and then say you're the king. And Yatom is saying, Yotam, not Yatom. Yotam is saying this is not proper. Library. Okay, here we go. So back to this source. How do you know that grapes are the ones on which we sing Shira in the Beit HaMikdash? And it quotes us this pasuk, where it says that the grape tree, the grapevine says, I'm making God and people happy. So Iman Hashim Mesameach, I understand how the wine makes people happy. They're drinking it. Elohim B'mem Mesameach, how are you making God happy? Mikan she'en omrim shira ela layayin. This is the connection where you see that they would only sing to God in the Beit HaMikdash during the korbanot for wine only. Okay, this is not the actual source, but it's a nice biblical source for this rule that we know, that the shira in the Beit HaMikdash would happen over wine. So far so good. You guys got to follow me. Hilulim, 2 praises with your 4th year fruits. So the first thing we want to say is 2 praises, 1 before, 1 after eating. That's your source for making berachot before eating and after eating. The Gemara says, but hold on a second. These 2 hilulim, one is actually a hilul, telling you deconsecrate it before you eat it if you're not going to eat it in Shalim. And number 2, halal is the only thing that this applies to. The only fruit that this Orlah law even applies to is the only fruit that gets halal, which is grapes. So now we're going to say how there's 2 opinions as to what the laws of Orlah apply to. Hanicha laman detani neta Revai. If you hold that the laws of Revai, of this 4th year, apply to all fruits, so you're not learning the second derasha. The second derasha limits it only to grapes. So if you hold, this applies to all fruits, so you're only going to use one halal for hilul, but the other one is available, and so you can learn a berachah from it. But if one says that these 4th year fruits only apply to grapes, that's because you're learning this drasha out of the word hilul. You don't have any hiluls available to make a drasha for food. What can you learn from here? The itmar, because we learned this machloket. Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi. 2 opinions. Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shimon. Chad tani kerem Revai, the chad tani neta Revai. One says the laws of the 4th year apply to grapes only, and that's because you're saying one of these hilulim is teaching you that, and the other one says no, this applies to all fruits. So the one that says this applies to all fruits has one halal available, but the one that says it applies only to grapes doesn't have one halal available. Hold put together. So hilulim, you see on the top, he took the word hilulim and he split it up into blue and red to teach you there's 2 drashot here. The first one, the drasha number 1 is on the right. It's right for you. For me, it's the right. I don't know what it is for you. Achle v'hadar achle, which means deconsecrate it, then you're allowed to eat it. That's one thing you learn from here. The second one of hilulim, that's teaching you about your 4th fruits. Either you're saying it applies only to kerem, which you have in blue, and if that's what you do, you say it only applies to kerem, then you don't have anything available. But if you say that it applies to all fruits, not just grapes, you have one hilul available. And that's why he has it in red. The red is resembling that extra availability that you could learn a berachah from. Okay? I know this is complicated. I know it's complicated, but it's okay. Yes, you're still timed out, but you could try. Okay, Ilan, you're taking these drashot too literally. When you're making so we're gonna see that this is not. You're right. You know what? It's not fair for me to say that. You're right, because what we're doing now is we're going to try to learn these drashot out, but there's going to be tons of holes, and at the end, the Gemara is going to say, "You're right. This doesn't hold water, and I need another source completely." And then it tries that source, and it says that has an issue, so I need a 3rd source. So the fact that I know that the answer is that we're going to poke so many holes into this, you're poking a little bit more holes, fine. But you're saying, well, hilulim means plural, so maybe I could learn 10 things from it. So why are you limiting me? Because there's a concept called tafasta merubeh lo tafasta, tafasta memuta tafasta, which means when you're making derashot, you're only allowed to assume the minimum that you're allowed to assume. Hilulim minimally teaches you two exclusions to this rule, or two laws related to this rule. So we first want to say berachah before and after. But when we have someone else that says one or two. Now, could there be three? Could there be four? Could there be five? Yeah, but it didn't tell us that. So since it didn't tell us that, you have to assume the least. But what I'm telling you, though, is that that's one issue out of many. There's going to be many issues, and at the end, the Gemara is going to reject it. So you're doing the right thing by asking these questions, but I'm just giving you a little bit of a preview, and this is not going to be the final answer. This is not an ironclad, this is more of a agada. This is not really a halacha. Even though you're learning halacha from it, you're going to see that it's not real. Okay, questions? Oops. Okay, you guys with me? Guys, I did something crazy. I took this page of Gemara. I thought we were going to get through it. I took this page of Gemara. I threw it into Claude. I went back and forth with Claude and said, I want to make a flow chart of the logic of this entire Gemara. It asks me some things. I say some yes. It creates me this like HTML clickable thing. I'm like, bro, chill. This is way too complicated. Make it into a PDF. And then it says, you know what? I'll make it into a PowerPoint so you could edit it. I say, I like how you think. So I created a PDF. Now it happens to be I don't have a PDF editor on my iPad. It created me a 10-page slide. I'm very excited about this. So here it's going to start off with a core question. What is the Torah source that one must make a bracha before eating? So number one is going to be this kodesh hilulim laShem, Rabbi Akiva's Joshua from Revai produce. Now you see how it says over here collapses in the first version of Claude, like you could click on this word collapses and it opens up. Very cool stuff. Here I just have it built up into this. Answer number one. Hilulim implies two praises. Can you see this, by the way? Yeah? Hilulim implies two praises. Bracha before and bracha after eating Revai produce. From here, Rabbi Akiva says it is forbidden to taste anything before making a bracha. Objection! Both hilulim are needed elsewhere. Guys, this generated it for me on the spot. It's crazy. Number one, chilul. You must redeem Revai before eating it outside of Yerushalayim. That's the first rule you learn from it. And number two, only items used for shira, which is one, require redemption. The source is from Shoftim. Both hilulim used up, none left for bracha. Amazing. Okay, and then the Gemara is going to say this objection plays out differently depending on a key dispute, whether the text of the Mishnah is neta Revai or kerem Revai. If you hold that the law of Revai refers to kerem, which is grapes, so both of your hilulim are taken. One, to teach you got to deconsecrate it before you eat it. The second, that it's talking about grapes only. But if you hold that it doesn't hold grapes only, and it can apply to all fruits, you just freed up one that you could learn berachot for. That's where we're up to now. Now, okay, so here are the two paths. Now, I'm not going to... Now, this is really the next part of the Gemara. Claude is incredible. It's really incredible. I fed it with some stuff, and it created me an entire thing. And then it goes here, there's a kal vachomer, this, that. And then at the end, it gives you a summary. Beautiful stuff. I'm just giving this to just get you a little bit interested and intrigued so that next time we'll go through this so that we have a memory, and then we're going to go through the flow. So I just want to repeat, and you know what? Let's make a commitment, bli neder together. Tonight we started learning the importance of making berachot before we eat food. Okay. Now our Mishnah starts off by asking us, what do you say before eating fruits of the tree? Borei pri ha'etz, except for wine. Then you say borei pri ha'gefen, created the fruits of the vine. Fruits of the ground, borei pri ha'adama, except for bread, elevated status, it's a staple. Hamotzi lachem min haaretz. What about dishaim, herbage? First opinion, Chachamim say borei pri ha'adama. It's also fruits of the ground, as Richard said, because it's coming out of the ground. Whereas Rabbi Yehudah wants to get a little bit more specific, and he says it's not really a fruit; it's an herbage. So I want to say borei minei dishaim. God created herbs. The said there. Then our Gemara says, what's our source? The Gemara starts poking around at the rule of Revai, which is this week's parasha, and starts saying, hey, the first 3 years of a fruit, you're not allowed to eat it. The fourth year, there are praises. What are these praises? Okay, these praises are berachot. We're saying, no. These two praises are coming to teach us two distinct rules. One of the rules is that in order to eat this food outside of Jerusalem, you have to deconsecrate it. Achleh. The second rule is that this whole law applies only to grapes. So now, both of my hilulim are taken. I don't have anything available to learn berachot from. So we say, well, okay, that second one that this only applies to grapes, that's only one opinion. There is an opinion that says this applies to other fruits. That second drasha, that it only applies to grapes, you don't apply that. So now you have one hilul available. So at least according to this, you could sneak in at least one berachah. Either let's call it a bracha after. I don't have a bracha before, but at least bracha after. That's where we are now. The Gemara is then going to say, but so the one about grapes, like how does he learn it out? And then it goes a step further, and then it hits a dead end. Then it comes back to this side and says, I got an issue. Because if you're telling me he's talking about other fruits, what about non-fruits? What's your source for meat that you have to say bracha? So we're going to say, okay, we just hit a dead end, and then it comes and ends up landing at a third place. So Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to do this whole thing together. What I want to do is bli neder, as a group. Let's try to, as we learn this Gemara, to rededicate ourselves to making berachot before food items. Every time we eat a food, let's try to say bracha. It takes 2 seconds. It really takes 2 seconds, maybe 3 seconds if you have some kavana, but it doesn't take more than that. Let's try to say berachot. Let's try to say it loud. Obviously, if you're in a setting where you don't want to say it loud, it's okay. But if you're at home, try to say it loud. If you have family, you have your kids around you, say the bracha out loud. Why not? Let them answer amen. Let them hear the berachot. Let's try. Bli neder as a group. You guys want to do this or no? Let's do it? Yes? Bli neder as a group. Let's try to take on the mitzvah of berachot together. So as we're learning the berachot, we do the mitzvah of beracha, and here Hashem should give us beracha in our zechut of our learning. Okay? Azak baruch.